Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chris's Creed. Oh, yes, hello, Chewy. There's my good boy. Yes, he's my sweet boy. Oh, my papa. My papa boy. We are being joined by the absolutely adorable Chewy on this episode, who is laying next to me, and I just love it. I love that we're the only two people in this entire apartment, and he gets to sit here with me, and that's what he wants to do. So today's questions for Chris is actually going to focus. One of them is going to be about Chewy. He won't be able to answer. Not many people understand what he's saying. But I am more than happy to try and interpret. So the first question for Chris has to do with Chewy. What kind of dog is he? How did we get him? Where did he come from? Why is he so cute? We ask him that question all the time. Why are you so cute? Yeah, that's definitely a thing. So we got Chewy from my brother, and that was not a particularly healthy situation for Chewy. My opinion, I don't feel like my brother should have treated him the way that he did. Um, like, I'm trying not to cast judgment or shade or anything. It's just like a fact that I feel like should be said. Um, Chewy is very sensitive about his paws, and he's very sensitive about loud noises, and there are reasons for that because he did not have his boundaries respected. Um, as I've gone through the counseling program, I've discovered that Chewy and dogs in general deserve boundaries and deserve consent. Just because they can't tell us yes or no doesn't mean they don't know what yes or no means. It doesn't mean they don't know what they want and what they don't want. What Chewy doesn't want is to have his paws touched on a regular basis. What Chewy doesn't want is to be picked up and held whenever we want. He wants to be picked up and held whenever he wants. He doesn't want to be pet all the time. He doesn't want to be called up and forced to lay next to me anytime. He doesn't want to be forced to do anything. That being said, as with any child or any animal, there are boundaries that we have to put in place and things that they have to do whether they want to or not, usually for their safety. Chewy does not like walking on a leash. We do it anyway. He is not a fan. When we can, we take him to places where leashes aren't needed so that we can, make sure that he's free to roam about as he so chooses. Chewy doesn't like to be told to sit and stay. Chewy doesn't like to be left alone. Yet those things need to happen because how else are we going to go to work and make the money to get the things that he needs so that he can eat and get him the toys that he so lovingly ignores? Um, I don't know how else we would do that unless I can find a job where I can bring him to work every day. I don't know that that's really a possibility. So, yeah, that could be a thing. Chewy also doesn't like music. We sing a lot in our household, and when we were doing Zoom church, we were singing hymns, like sitting here together, and he would like get up and just skank us out and leave the room. He is not a fan, and maybe it was like specifically he wasn't a fan of like church music. I don't know. So yeah. Maybe that's the thing. Anyway, so yeah, that's about Chewy. Um, yeah, he's an adorably small, stubborn little dog. So yes, that's about Chewy. That's our dog. Um, we love him. We love him so very, very much. We've developed this amazing relationship where we're his pack, we're his family, we're his, he's ours, and it's just amazing and beautiful. He's my soul dog. He is me in dog form. Um, the next question is how did publishing so the next question has to do with books. I know that I totally went on a little tangent about my dog, but I could talk about my dog all the time. The next question is about books. How did publishing your first book change your process of writing? And In a way, publishing didn't change my process of writing. It made me want to write more, which I guess would technically be a change because I wasn't writing as much as I thought I wanted to. So it made me want to write more. Publishing also made me realize that I needed to market my own materials. So that's part of why I did things like join Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and all those things. I already had like a Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, but I cater them now for writing. So yeah, that's the thing. The other part is that it made me implement deadlines within myself, where, especially where I'm going to be self-publishing my sci-fi, I wanted to set deadlines for myself, and that's totally a thing. So yeah, um, do I follow those deadlines? No, I set them. I know that I can break them. Does that mean that I should? Absolutely not. Do I anyway? Of course I do. Those are all the questions for Chris that I will be taking today. Thank you for sending me questions. Thank you for asking me questions and being curious about me. It makes me feel important and loved. So let's keep that up because that's an amazing feeling. Now we're going to be moving on to chapter 18 of Porch Light. There, we're on the right page. So, last chapter, yay! Casey and Nick finally made up. Oh my goodness, that was such a hassle. And they wrote lyrics about themselves, like each other and themselves, and it was really interesting and kind of cute and adorable. Feedback about the lyrics. I haven't heard any. If you do have any, you should let me know because that would be really cool to hear. So now we're moving on to the next chapter where we are learning more about um where we are well they're you'll see. You'll see what's going to happen in chapter 18 because you're going to hear it in just a minute. Chapter 18. Werewolf's Debut. Casey and I continued working together for several days. I ended up crashing at his place, totally neglecting my own place. It was amazing how quickly I'd grown accustomed to living out of a suitcase. I had all my clothes and toiletries in the suitcase, and my bag had all my fun stuff, like books and Sudoku. I tried getting Casey into Sudoku, but he just wasn't feeling it, yet the man could sit there and work one of those Sunday crosswords like nobody's business. We figured out the melodies for our songs and let our bandmates know we had some work cut out for us once we got back into the studio. Early on the Saturday before we were set to record in Nashville, I woke up to my phone ringing. Nick, it's Omar. Oh, hey, what's up? He laughed. Want some news that's going to wake you up faster? I rubbed my eyes and sat up in Casey's bed. He was still snoring next to me. Hit me. You've been asked to be the band on Saturday Night Live's season premiere. Holy shit! My voice jerked Casey out of his sleep as I began to slap his body repeatedly. Casey, we're going to be on SNL. Oh my god, Omar, I want to be in a skit. Can I be in a skit, please? I'll see what we can work out. I just wanted to let you know before you got here Monday. Anyway, have fun telling everyone. See you soon. Thanks, Omar. I hung up the phone as Casey rolled over looking excited. I grabbed him in a hug and he rolled us until we fell off the bed. Ow! Sorry, you okay? I laughed. Yeah, we have to call Levi and Kennedy. I kissed him on the cheek purely out of habit, and he got a weird look on his face. He stood up, pulling the covers with him. I ignored his reaction and got Levi on the phone. He was excited in his Levi way. I believe he said, "Nice." And that was it. Kennedy, however, used many swear words to convey her excitement. We all agreed we should go out to celebrate. That night we hit the Amazon, listening to a band we'd heard a few times. Casey and I each went through 2 drinks quickly, then Casey switched to water while I continued drinking. Kennedy noticed and nudged me encouragingly, but I was busy paying attention to the guy who walked through the door. Scott? He gave a wide smile and walked over. As we hugged, he spoke into my ear over the noise of the band. Hey, Mr. Famous. It's been a minute. How are you? I'm good. We're out celebrating. We're going to be the musical guest on SNL on their season opening. He looked ecstatic. Congrats! Hey, let me buy you all a drink. He bought us a round. Casey, however, asked for a soda instead. He was really trying. I could feel his struggle, though. His leg was twitching wildly, and he kept looking back at the bar. Suddenly, we heard the band begin a new song, a familiar song. This one goes out to our local favorites who made it big, and they're here tonight. Let's hear it for Taking Back Nick. Applause rang through the bar as they performed a lesser-known song from our album, Here Without Becky. It was so odd listening to it sung by another band. They changed the key. It sounded so different. I listened to your album. This song always kind of stuck out to me. Scott was leaning close so he didn't disturb the band's performance. He smelled like oranges and cinnamon. What's it about? Where'd it come from? I looked at Casey just in case he wanted to answer, but he gestured to me. I'd been deferring to Casey a lot recently. I was still feeling my way around our relationship after our first big fight. So Casey and I wrote that song about this girl we'd gone to school with who killed herself a few years after graduation. She was a beauty queen, prom queen, homecoming queen, all the queens. She was on student council, super popular, and actually really nice about it. She was never pretentious or snobby to anybody. She sounds great. I nodded thoughtfully. She really was. I remember one time she was having a hard time opening her locker, and I was walking by. She asked me to help, and I totally tried, but it didn't work. She ended up being able to open it herself, and I felt all embarrassed. But she just laughed and said I'd warmed it up for her. Wow. So what happened? She was in college when she did it. Her friends thought everything was fine, her family too. But she left a note talking about all the struggles she was facing, the expectations she was being held to by herself, and the general feeling it was all too much. Scott clicked his tongue sympathetically. That sucks. It sounds like she might have had some depression issues that went unaddressed. Yeah. Anyway, that was when Casey and I wrote that song, Here Without Becky. It was a reminder to check in with the happy people. It was all about the masks everybody wears for other people. He tilted his head. Do you think you've had to start wearing a mask since your band made it big? I took a breath, raising my eyebrows. I don't know. I mean, I try not to let it get to me, but yeah, some of the performances I gave did feel like I had to put on my happy mask. The tour was kind of hard. Why? I glanced at Casey, who was probably pretending not to listen, but I was 3 drinks in now and didn't mind talking about it. I did a really stupid interview in the Nashville Out Gazette. The reporter called Casey gay, which obviously pissed him off, so we sort of had that hanging over our heads. He looked between us. But you're good now? I nodded. It was our first big fight. We both said things. I said things to hurt his feelings. Casey said things that hurt my feelings because they were true. So that was hard for me to come to terms with. We're doing better. We even wrote songs to process through things. Are you going to perform them for your next album? I mean, I assume there's going to be one. Yeah, I think so. We haven't even rehearsed them as a group yet, but I know I'd like to. The band finished the song and we applauded. I blew kisses at the lead singer, who smiled but also looked terrified for a moment. I guess dudes blowing kisses to each other wasn't a normal thing. Well, it should be. Hey, Nick, you guys want to perform for us? The bar went wild. I looked around, actually annoyed, but trying to be a good sport. I looked at Scott, who nodded encouragingly to perform. You two should perform one of the songs you've been working on. Freaking Kennedy, of course you would suggest that. They're not really ready yet. Everyone will love it, just keep it basic. I looked at Casey, who smiled and grinned. It's up to you. Again, me deferring to him. We can sing yours or we can sing mine. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking sheepish. Can we do mine? I nodded, grinning. Even Levi and Kennedy hadn't heard it. I took a drink off Casey's water as we walked up to the front to renewed applause. The other band cleared off the stage, except for the guitarist, who handed his instrument off to Casey with a few words. Casey nodded, strummed a few chords, then looked at me expectantly. This song is written by the amazing Casey Doyle. It's called Werewolves Broke My Heart, and it's the first time it's ever been performed, and I've had a few drinks, so go easy on us. I nodded, and we began to perform. It started out with excited chatter and other people near the back of the bar who weren't paying attention, but all eyes and ears were on us soon enough. I'd been working with Casey's new song long enough that I remembered the words. The melody was a little iffy, but I faked it. No one would ever know. As soon as we played the last chord, cheers went up. Levi stood and applauded over his head, and Kennedy actually wiped a tear from her eye. It felt really good. Not that I'd gotten bored of our other songs, but it was wonderful to perform something new, especially when the reception was a standing ovation. Look for that song on our next album. Again, Casey Doyle. Casey ducked his head and looked bashful, but he definitely deserved the credit. I got off stage and Scott greeted me with a hug. I downed the rest of my drink in a rush, then I looked back at Scott to see a strange look in his eyes. Want to have another drink? Maybe back at my place? I grinned. Yeah, I think I'd like that. Let me just pay my tab. I got up to the bar and found Casey there waiting to order. I caught the bartender's eye and gave them a thumb gesture to indicate I was leaving. They nodded as they were mixing drinks. So I think that went really well. Casey nodded. Yep. Scott asked me to have a drink with him back at his place. He bit his lip. I heard. Congrats, he's a nice guy. I laughed, feeling lightheaded from the alcohol and the performance. Yeah, maybe I could convince him my knee still hurts and get special treatment or something. I hope I get to see all his muscles in action. I gotta pee. Casey suddenly swept off toward the bathroom. The bartender set a drink in his place, looking annoyed. I told her I'd pay for it. I watched him go, concerned for a moment, then I decided to shrug it off. Maybe I was making him jealous I was going to get laid tonight and he might not. I said goodbye to Kennedy and Levi, signed a few autographs on the way out the door, and Scott drove me to his house in Old Town. I don't know what kind of drink he mixed, but it was probably one of the best I'd ever had. It had a little orange peel on the rim. He did everything right. He put on some smooth music and sat with his arm behind me on the couch. About an hour later, we were in his bedroom, him kissing me tenderly on the lips, cheeks, jaw, and neck. His fingers worked themselves into my body with surprising gentleness. He lowered his head between my legs and worked me into his mouth, his fingers still penetrating me with smooth, calming actions. Soon he was moaning on top of me. The feeling was incredible. He just seemed to fit right into me without any excess pain. Pleasure overwhelmed my body as his hips and tongue traced tantalizing circles on my neck and chest. I felt like I was on the ocean as wave after wave of ecstasy broke over me. Afterward, I lay with my head nestled in the crook of his arm. I couldn't help but compare him to other lovers I'd had. Hector's selfishness seemed exaggerated next to Scott's soft and giving nature. Tony wasn't necessarily fast, but he was in a hurry to get to the good parts, whereas Scott had taken his time helping me feel comfortable and prepared. That was wonderful. I kissed him softly on the chest, my hand running softly up and down his hairy stomach. You're... well, I feel very good. I'm glad. His fingers were running up and down my back. I kind of wish we'd gotten together sooner. Maybe you would have contacted me sooner when you were back in town. I didn't even know you were in King until you posted online you were attending Buell's Busy Baby at the Amazon tonight. I looked up at him. That's why you went to the bar tonight? You saw I was going there? His cheeks flushed. Well, now I feel all stalkerish. I just... I really enjoyed the date we had and wanted to see where it could go. I'm surprised you have good memories from that night. I mostly remember having to babysit Casey. He was sober tonight. I was surprised he wasn't drinking. He said he was working on it. We sort of had a fight on tour. I mean, not the one me and Casey had. Kennedy and Casey did about his drinking. You'll have to watch out for him. I frowned at Scott, but he continued. It seems like he might be going through something, and he's dealing by not dealing at all. I let out a big breath. Yeah, I just wish he'd talk to me. Anyway, how do we get talking about Casey? Scott adjusted himself to be the big spoon for me. You brought him up. In fact, you usually do. I wonder if you're dealing with something too and not dealing with it. Know what I mean? I didn't say anything as he kissed me on the neck. And that's it for chapter 18. If you're following along in the book, we just finished page 130. I can't believe we've gone through 130 pages of my book. That's crazy to me. And looking at it, we're definitely more than halfway through the book now. My goodness. My goodness gracious. One little thing I wanted to say about this chapter was when I was talking about the reason they wrote that song, Here Without Becky, I wanted to say that the term killing yourself is something that we try to avoid talking about now. Instead, we use the term completed suicide. We specifically do that because the idea of It's the idea of victimization or making there be like a perpetrator and a victim kind of thing, I think is the idea behind it. Um, I should actually look into the full reason why, but all I know is that when we talk in counseling, we talk about completing suicide. Um, However, like when we are counseling someone, and they have thoughts, we ask them flat out, "Do you want to kill yourself?" So that's totally a thing. Anyway, um, it's only been since 2020 since that book was published, and already that language I know is outdated. And it was probably outdated at the time. I just didn't know. So thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate the opportunity to be given a chance to kind of explain like what I've done wrong or what I have written incorrectly or updating things, what I would do differently now, and all that kind of stuff. So that's why part of the reason why I wanted to do this podcast so badly was to make sure that I was able to say, hey, I wrote this and here's what I would have done differently, or here's what I like about it. So that's everything I have for this episode of Chris's Creative Corner, episode 18 of season 1. We look forward to seeing you next time, next episode. Same place, same channel, same everything, but with a different shirt, of course. In fact, I think that's I got a question about the shirts, and so that's gonna be one of the questions I answer next time. So until then, we will see you next time. Thank you.